Hello, everybody. We will be waiting a couple of more minutes. Thank you to everyone that has joined so far. We're waiting for a few more people, and we will start the presentation in 2 minutes. For the time being, please introduce yourself on the chat with your name, where you're joining, and the project you're currently working on. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we can start now. Thank you, everybody that has joined us today for the webinar about designing a compelling pitch for your startup or for your company. My name is Gers Fisman. I am the head of research here at StartupBlink. If you have any comments or any questions about the presentation, please feel free to write to me to gers@startupblink.com, the email that you see on the screen. But yeah, let's get started with this. It's already, I think, 5 minutes after the time, so yeah, let's get started. So first of all, we want to remind everybody that this webinar is uh, brought together in partnership of StartupBlink with the IBM Startup Program, the IBM for Startups. It's a program directed to startups, software developers, accelerators, and investors that are working in their respective startup ecosystems. As the benefits for this program, you receive mentorship from IBM's network. You get to pitch your solutions to IBM clients and investor network, and you get free cloud credits to use tech like Watson X and other technologies at IBM. This is a no-cost and equity-free program, and we invite you to join today at ibm.startupblink.com. We also, I mean, this is a kind of theoretical presentation webinar, but we'd like to remind you that every last Wednesday of the month, we do have a pitching event that we organize here at StartupBlink. It's also a virtual pitching event that you can join either as a viewer or to present your startup. We select a few startups each month to present in these events. As a listener, you get the opportunity to mentor, provide feedback to the startups participating and voting for the best one in the end. Each month, the winning pitch is featured in our blog, in our social media, and our newsletter. Well, I mean, the startup from with the winning pitch is featured in our blog, social media, and newsletter, reaching more than 50,000 people. And the most contributing listeners will also be showcased on our upcoming mentor leaderboard. We invite you to sign up for the next pitching event at pitching.startupblink.com. Yeah, now for the topics of the day. So, the first thing that we will be touching is a brief introduction about StartupBlink, what we do, why we do these events, what gives us the right to be presenting about these topics related to startups. And we will then continue with the key elements of a pitch. We will also have a section about investors and types of financing in the specific to the startup world. We will then go on to the optimal structure of a pitch and a final section of how to engage with investors. And then in the end, we will have a space in which we will provide a bit of a conclusion and a space for questions and answers. Okay. At any moment, please feel free to put questions on the group chat. We will be gathering those questions and answering them at the end of the presentation. So yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, StartupBlink, what do we do? Well, StartupBlink is a global research center studying the innovation ecosystem. So we have we provide services to clients around the world, but we have a few free products. The first that I will mention and that you might have seen at startupblink.com is the Global Startup Ecosystem Map. We feature more than almost 200,000 startups at this point around the world, and with this, we analyze these startups, rank them according to a few parameters such as funding, employees, traffic of the startups, and then, well, let me invite you to add your startup and find out your ranking at startupblink.com/startups. We are in partnership with SEMrush and Crunchbase to analyze this data, but with the data that we get on the StartupBlink Global Startup Ecosystem Map, we have an algorithm that we basically crunch all this data, and with this algorithm rank 1,000 cities and 100 countries around the world according to the strengths of the startup ecosystem. We work together with partnerships in more than 100 governments around the world at every level, and you can download the edition of this year's Global Startup Ecosystem Index at report.startupblink.com. If you're interested in ecosystem development, please contact us at feedback@startupblink.com. And yeah, why do we do this? Basically, we believe that, we're big followers, very interested in this concept of Naval. You might have heard about Naval. He's a really interesting thought leader in the startup world. He's an investor, a founder, etc., and he has this concept of the three big life questions, which are what you do, who you marry, and where do you do it. So we are focused on that last question, and we believe you should too, because both unicorns and successful self-funded startups are mostly born in startup hubs. These hubs give you access to investors, high-quality clients, partners, team members, co-founders, knowledge base, etc. So we really do believe that depending on your goals, if you are in an underperforming ecosystem, you should either leave it or lead it to become a better startup ecosystem. Okay, so this is a brief screenshot of the top startup ecosystems according to our ranking. But this is not what we came here to talk, right? We came here to talk about pitching for startups. So what are the key elements of a convincing pitch? So what is a pitch in general? A pitch is a short, let's say, speech that we give potential partners, and in partners we talk about clients or suppliers or investors, to convince them that they should be working with us in whatever we want them to work with us. In these speeches, we think that to effectively present them, we need to address four essential components, which are the problem that exists, okay, the solution that we propose to solve this problem, the value proposition of our solution, why it is unique, and the financial aspects of your solution, why your solution will be profitable in the future. In the case you are a for-profit company, of course, which is the assumption here, as we are mostly on a startup-y private sector environment, right? So each of these elements plays a vital role in persuading your audience and about the success of your idea. So the problem, it is very, very important that you have clearly identified the problem that your company is solving. It must be specific, relevant, and supported by data or examples to demonstrate that it is an impactful problem that needs solving in the real world. The more urgent or widespread the problem is, the stronger your argument to convince investors or any other kind of stakeholders that are relevant to care about this problem. Okay. It's important. It is very, very, very common for startups to start with a solution and get in love with it, be in love with the solution, but there's not really a problem for it. So it is important to try to avoid this trap in which many founders has fallen, right? So uh, after the problem, we talk about, of course, the solution, what we're doing to address this problem, right? We want to, in the pitch, clearly present the unique solution that we're providing and how exactly it's solving the problem. With exactly, I'm not meaning to go extremely deep because in many cases you won't have much time to give these speeches, but uh, to address in simple words, in few words, how you're solving them, but not necessarily in a deep way, but also depends on your audience. Make sure that the solution is easy to understand and stands out from existing options. That is, it is unique. Focus on how your product or service innovates or improves current solutions in the market. Is it cheaper? Does it provide more revenue for the users? So that's basically the idea is to have a better product, right, than the competitors. Ideally, there's some thought leaders that say that it should be 10 times better as the existing solutions to be a successful product. So people feel that it's worth it to change the solution. So what is the value proposition? In the value proposition, we talk about defining the tangible benefits that your product or service is offering to the customers, what value they're getting, either by, as I said, less cost, increased revenue, more efficiency, etc. So what value do they get by choosing your solution over the other ones in the market? Highlight the competitive advantage, explain why your solution will stand out in the market, and why your team is the best positioned one to offer the solution. And of course, the finances. In the end, if you're talking specifically, if you're talking with an investor, but talking with anybody that will partner with you, because everybody will want you to be a partner in the long term. You need to explain the business model, how you are planning to generate revenue and become profitable in the span of time that you're talking about, right? So include realistic financial projections that demonstrate growth potential and financial health. So the next step is to understand a little bit about investors and types of financing to be clear on what exactly you need to ask. You always need to ask something in the pitch, and most likely if you will be asking for money and in exchange of something, right? Either equity or the compromise to do payments in the future if you're taking a loan. But yeah, let's talk about the main sources of, let's say, main formal sources of funding in the startup world. I'm talking about formal because we didn't include here the triple F, right? The friends, families, family and fools, but these are by far the most common sources of financing for startups. But besides those, in which you will definitely need also a pitch, but maybe a less formal one. We have these more formal specialized investors, which are angels. They usually invest on their own funds, their personal funds in startups in exchange for equity and at a very, very early stage. Then we have venture capitalists. They go a little bit later, but they're also divided by stage. They can be at the very early stage, seed, pre-seed, etc., or later stages when there's already a product, revenue, etc., such as Series B, C, D, etc., etc. They invest in companies that have high growth potential. There's another method which is crowdfunding. Basically, you've seen it, right? It's usually internet sites in which a lot of people invest in a business that they like in exchange for shares of the business, but also can be in exchange for benefits, free products, free services of the business, etc. You might notice, of course, that we are not we didn't we didn't include banks, but they also are a very important source of financing if your company is has a more it's a more traditional company and has a more stable income or stable prospects in the short term. So what are investors looking for? First thing, strong growth potential, which is scalable in the medium and long term. They are also looking, and do not uh, underestimate this, a solid team capable of realizing the vision that the founders have. They also evaluate the market opportunity, the differentiation of the product, the traction that the company already has, and the ability to generate ROI. They, of course, also take into account the associated risks, competition, long-term viability of the project, etc. So yeah, they, of course, take into account multiple things and not just the idea, right? It's the idea is important, but can you convince me that this idea is will have a uh, strong growth, strong growth that you can also monetize, and do you have the team to do it? So yeah, what are some types of financing? The basic ones, I guess, would be the equity financing. The investors provide capital in exchange for ownership of the company, shares on the company. In It can lead to share to sharing the power, the decision making on the company if the investor takes enough equity, but it also offers long-term funding that it's not uh, compromised in the way a loan is. You don't have to pay X amount by X date, so you don't have to repay in the same way as a loan has to be repaid. There is also debt financing, and in fact, there is what it's called venture debt, which is debt specifically for startups. Of course, debt financing means borrowing money that must be repaid with an interest. It allows you to retain full ownership of the company, but requires you to meet payment obligations, as I was mentioning before. And there are also some mixed figures like the convertible notes, which are a type of short-term debt that converts into equity if X criteria is met in the future. So it offers flexibility and aligns the interests of investors with the success of the founders and of the company. After understanding a little bit about about investors, let's go further with the optimal structure of the pitch, in our opinion. Okay, so we strongly believe that the way that you structure your presentation can make or break your pitch. A well-organized presentation in that it explains your idea and your solution in simple terms captures the attention of investors and allows them to quickly grasp the value of your project. So we suggest to structure it in this way. Of course, different projects may require different adaptations of this structure, but we think this is a good template to start the building of your pitch with. The first thing, of course, is an introduction, is something that grabs the attention of the listener. It's good to have something very shocking, like a statistic that is attention grabbing, a personal story that connects you to the idea, to the company, or a bold statement about the market, either in the present or in the future, basically to get the full attention of the listener. Then the problem and the solution. This, of course, should be done in a non-dry way. Especially if our solution is very technical, we tend to go to the specifics, but we forgetting that the investors or the listeners are maybe not as technical as you. So there should be a component of storytelling to explain the problem and demonstrate that your solution is effectively addressing it, right? This is where you establish the need that the market has for your business. Then we should go to the market opportunity, highlighting the size and growth potential of the market. Investors want to know, and this is one of the most important things, that your company operates in a sector where there is a significant opportunity for expansion. So this should be clear in the pitch. The economic model, you need to explain how it is that you are planning to make money. Clearly describe your sources of revenue, your pricing strategy, your long-term plans. I also think, and repeat when I do these talks, these webinars, that it's also very important to to show that you have a clear understanding of the unit economics, so that you understand what are the unit costs of the product or the service you're selling, and how it compares to the revenue you're making, because it provides uh, more than just more than just explaining that you have that knowledge. It also uh, signals to the investor that you have done your homework and that you properly understand the market you're working on. Uh, so the fifth point of the structure is the traction. The idea here is to show in the best way possible what is the evidence that you have reached some kind of success, such as customer acquisitions. Sales figures is, of course, ideal. Any partnerships, product milestones, just visitors to the page, any prize you might have won, etc. Everything is interesting for the potential investor. Then the financial forecast, depending on the stage, this can be very important or not that much, but you should provide a forecast on, at least in broad terms, to provide the evidence to the investors if that you understand what are the assumptions to get to the growth that they need, right? And that these assumptions make sense and are not just crazy numbers that you're throwing around. It's important to include key indicators such as the customer acquisition cost and lifetime value of the user. As I was saying, one of the most important slides on the pitch structure is the team. It is well known that almost a cliche, that investors bet on people and not just the ideas. The point here is that you have a group of people that are aligned and have the ability, have the skills necessary to lead the company to its success. And to finalize this, we also think that you should close with a request for the listener. Basically, it usually is an investor, so it would be the request to the how much money you're looking for in exchange for X amount of equity, but also if you're looking for partners, if you're looking for clients, if you're looking for whatever, this should be clear from this speech. Okay. So yeah, after looking at a bit at the structure, the last thing we want to go over here is a few tips on how to best engage investors if you get an interview, a presentation with them. Okay, so one of the key things is that you need to keep the presentation focused, precise, as short as possible. Okay, so depending on the context, well, I mean, we usually need to have several multiple pitches prepared with different durations because the amount of time you will have might vary depending on the context of the situation. So it's very famous about this elevator pitch thing that in a minute you have to share everything you have in case you, for example, get in an elevator with Mark Zuckerberg and you want to explain and get money from him. But depending if you're in a pitch competition like or a pitch event like the StartupBlink one, you might have between 2 and 5 minutes. In other contexts, in a meeting with an investor, you might have between 5 to 10. But more than 10 minutes would, in general, be too much. Just make sure. I mean, the idea here is that to make sure that the pitch maintains the investor's attention and leaves time for questions. Also, in the presentation usually should be less heavy on the text and should have clear visuals, avoiding unnecessary details, focusing on the key points that demonstrate the value of your project and the investment opportunity. I think I mentioned it below also, but there are I mean, you need to know your audience. So in some cases, details or technical details are very unnecessary, but in some cases, they are necessary depending who you're speaking with, right? So there are generalist investors and but there are also specialized investors, and you need to understand the audience to pitch accordingly. Practice, of course, we recommend to practice as much as possible. Even each pitch that you do, even if you don't get anything out of it, it's just one more pitch in which you have practice. There's all these stories about how successful founders. There's, I think, the founder for the Canvas founder. She made like 200 pitches before receiving anything, any investment. So at the very least, each pitch is an opportunity to improve it. So yeah, practice is key here. The idea is to practice your presentation several times before any meeting to ensure a smooth delivery. Get feedback from friends, team, public. Practice, of course, will help you answer questions with more confidence to understand where you're weak in the presentation and where you're strong. Practice will allow you to master the timing and enhance your oral fluency. And yeah, well, a little bit about what I was saying, adapt to your audience, know the investor's background and interests. There are generalist and specialized investors, so you need to understand this to, in fact, I would argue towards having different presentations to not 20 different presentations, but you should have one for specialized investors if you're in a specialized field like health tech or whatever, If it's very niche, you should probably have a more technical presentation and then a more generalist one. Personalize your pitch to address what matters most to them. You need to, always find out who they are and what is that moves them, right? This will strengthen your credibility by establishing a more relevant connection with their expectations and by adapting your message to their priorities. You will also increase your chances of capturing their interest and obtaining a more favorable engagement. Okay. So also, it is important to anticipate questions as much as possible. So think about what I was saying before. What are the weak points, and that you have to work on the answers to the questions. So yeah, be ready to address objections and have data or information on hand to support your claims. Anticipate the difficult questions that they might ask and prepare clear and concise answers. So to sum up, a convincing pitch clearly articulates the problem, the solution, the market opportunity, and the business model. Investors are looking for strong growth potential, scalability, and a competent team. And engage your audience by structuring your presentation logically and keeping it concise. So that is it for the pitch today. Thank you very much for joining us again. If you have any questions, please answer them on the chat, ask them on the chat, or you can ask questions at feedback@startupblink.com, gers@startupblink.com, and the resources I was mentioning before to add your startup to our map, startupblink.com/startups, to download the latest StartupBlink index report, that's startupblink.com, and to join the program IBM for Startups that is partnering in this webinar, please go to ibm.startupblink.com and get all the benefits that the program gives. Great. So I see that there is a question on the financial aspects. There were equity and one more thing, which was it? It was equity and debt. Those are the, let's say, the main financial financing aspects, but there's also the convertible notes that there's a bit of a mix. That was from George. Thank you very much for the question. Please let us know if there are any other questions. And if not, it has been my pleasure to be here today in this webinar, and I hope we see you guys soon in other webinars, pitching events, or on my email if you have any questions. Thank you very much.